I am a woman that experiences my own reproductive health issues. And that's what essentially connected me to these women, because I have to go to the doctor and get treatment. I've had to get multiple reproductive health surgeries. And I couldn't imagine not being able to access menstrual products during that time, but let alone be behind bars and experiencing some of the things that these women experienced. And so for me, I mean, being proactive in your pursuit of justice means that once you see a problem, you don't wait for someone else to address that problem. It has now become your responsibility to do something about it.
They been cramping my style all week. Craving chocolate trees, checking pants, checking seeds, sipping herbal tea, and fight for menstrual equity. Sheesh. Hey, I kick Cramp's ass. 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 You're now tuned in to the Kick Cramp's Ass podcast with your host, Brittany Walker, advocating for menstrual equity, period poverty, and womb wellness. New episodes on Menstruation Mondays.
Happy Menstruation Monday. Welcome to the Kick Cramp's Ass podcast, where I am your host, Brittany Walker. And today we are discussing the law of menstrual dignity, unpacking Ohio's House Bill 29 with Kayelin Tiggs. So guys, today we're going to get into menstrual equity advocacy, menstrual management in prisons. We're going to go deeper into the House Bill 29 in Ohio, refining menstrual equity policy, and deprivation in correctional facilities. Now, you know we like to kick off each episode with the I am power statement. I representing inspiration, A representing affirmations, and M representing manifestations. And the I am power statement for today is, I am the bridge between scientific research and human dignity, reclaiming the narrative of the menstrual cycle from one of shame to one of power. So there it is, Ashe. Now we also like to give a quote of the day, and today's is, that's what just inspires me to keep going, is to know that no matter what difficult situation these women are faced with, they're going to continue to allow their voices to be heard. And that's by Kayelin Tiggs with the interview that she did with the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanity Center. Now, you know we're always sipping on our good old Cramp elixir, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick sip and cut to a commercial break, and we'll be right back with you. Tired of clunky remote recordings? Level up with Riverside FM Pro. Get studio quality audio and video, effortless editing with powerful AI tools, and seamless live streaming and collaboration. Become a pro of Riverside.fm and unlock the full potential of your content. Sign up today and make your voice heard. Visit the link in the description of this episode to discover more. Now, back to the show. Welcome back from that commercial break. We hope that you enjoyed it. So let's go ahead and talk about our guest today that we will be interviewing. Kayelin Tiggs is an independent researcher and menstrual equity organizer whose work confronts the criminalization and control of menstruation within institutional systems. She is the founder of the Ohio Coalition for Menstrual Equity, a statewide effort fighting the use of menstrual deprivation as punishment and advocating for bodily autonomy and dignity. Kayelin holds a Master of Arts in Applied Psychology from the University of Cincinnati, where her research exposed period poverty and reproductive injustice in Ohio's carceral system. That work led to her authorship of the House Bill 29, legislation that makes it illegal to withhold menstrual products as a form of punishment or discrimination in all Ohio correctional facilities. Please welcome Kayelin Tiggs to the podcast. Hello, Kayelin.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I am well. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm excited. Thank you for the work that you do to bring awareness to this issue that it seems like no one's talking about unless you're in this circle.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, I that's the whole point of this podcast. It's crazy to me that we're in 2026 and menstruation is still taboo. People still don't want to talk about it. People don't want to address the matter. So it's bananas to me. I'm always flabbergasted when people are just so prone to not want to talk about the subject.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's get right on into it. So, your journey from a pageant background to becoming a leading voice for incarcerated women is remarkable. How did your experience in the pageant world shape your ability to navigate the political landscape and pull the voice out of the mind for others?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always feel like pageantry is not something that's separate from all of this, right? I believe that there was this divine intervention in my life, and pageantry has been the foundation for me to be able to develop the skill sets that I needed to really be able to address this issue and talk about it confidently. So a lot of people don't realize that with preparing for pageants, especially like a national level type of pageant,
Mhm.
there's a lot of preparation that goes into being able to speak about current events and speak about really important topical issues in a way that resonates with a large audience of people, and speak about it in a way that's not offensive but empowering. And so I feel like 13 years of pageantry definitely gave me the confidence and the skill set to be able to address this issue when it did finally land in my lap, because I'll admit that it wasn't until I developed a pageant platform that I really started to pay attention to these issues that were happening behind bars and with women specifically. And so pageantry was essentially the catalyst that allowed for me to get in touch with these women. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to access them. And then it also gave me the skill set to be able to talk about these issues confidently with legislators and with other grassroots organizations. So it's all working together. It's been a blessing.
I love that. I love that. So it's like foundational work, and you just keep stacking and
Mhm.
stacking and getting to that end goal. That's beautiful. And thank you so much for the work that you do as well. So you've mentioned before, I've listened to a past interview of yours, and I've heard you say that an upstander is someone who is proactive in their pursuit of justice. Was there a specific moment or story from a formerly incarcerated woman that shifted your focus from general wellness to this specific mission for menstrual equity?
Yeah, so back in 2021, when I first started this work, I had a meeting with over a dozen formerly incarcerated women, and we were just talking about leadership. Again, I was holding a pageant title at that time. I wanted to talk to formerly incarcerated women about whether or not they saw themselves as leaders, because that's a question we don't ask incarcerated women and formerly incarcerated women. So that was the original intent of the conversation. And then someone brought up that one of the hardest parts about being behind bars was managing a menstrual cycle. And then
Mm,
these women started telling me their stories, and I started to immediately experience imposter syndrome, because I mean, it shook my consciousness, and it shook me to my core. And I knew I had to do something about it. But because I have never been incarcerated, I experienced these feelings and started asking questions like, well, what can I do about this? How can I relate to these women? I don't know anything about the law or legislation or grassroots organizing or anything. I just knew that something was bubbling up inside of me. I was so angry once I heard this. And so I believe that throughout this journey, something that I've learned was that it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter whether or not you feel that you can directly relate to the issue, or if you've been impacted by the issue directly or not. I am a woman that experiences my own reproductive health issues. And that's what essentially connected me to these women, because I have to go to the doctor and get treatment. I've had to get multiple reproductive health surgeries. And I couldn't imagine not being able to access menstrual products during that time, but let alone be behind bars and experiencing some of the things that these women experienced. And so for me, I mean, being proactive in your pursuit of justice means that once you see a problem, you don't wait for someone else to address that problem. It has now become your responsibility to do something about it. And I believe I'm a woman of faith. And I feel like once God plants a seed inside of you, he'll also provide you with the tools that you need. And so I had to put my imposter syndrome aside and do what I had to do to make this happen. Now, I didn't expect for it to blow up the way that it did. But I mean, that's the beauty of doing something and doing the right thing. Once you experience an injustice, you will have everything that you need, and you'll be surprised how many people support you and what resources that you can get once you fully take on your cause.
Absolutely. That was such a beautiful story. And it's unfortunate that these incarcerated women had to go through this. But like you said, hearing their stories, it galvanized you, it stimulated you to, like you said, fulfill your purpose or see like a bigger picture of something that you can be a part of. So that is very, very beautiful. So let's talk about House Bill 29.
Okay.
It is officially effective as of this month. Was it March 20th? Was that the correct date? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome sauce. And can you explain for our listeners why this bill is considered the first of its kind in the United States regarding anti-discrimination language?
Yeah, absolutely. So House Bill 29, it addresses the issue of withholding and denial of menstrual products in all corrections facilities in Ohio. So we'll just start there. There are about half of the states that have some type of law in place addressing this issue, but not all of those laws apply to all corrections facilities. Okay. So in Ohio, we only have 3 women's prisons, but we have jails all over the state, right? And so we have jails, we have workhouses, halfway houses, prisons. We wanted to be sure that no matter where a woman was transferred to, that there would be basic access in place. So we knew that the law, I have to remember to say law, that the law had to apply to all corrections facilities. A woman will be put in jail, and then upon being sentenced will move to a prison facility. And a lot of times they will transfer facilities throughout their sentencing. So we wanted to be sure that at a base level that was in place. And then we had to mandate that all facilities have some type of policy in place, right? And so when I first was doing this research, there was no law, no legislation, no policies, no nothing that existed. And so I had all of these testimonies from the women, and then I had the testimonies from jail staff, and there was a disconnect there. And what I realized was that there's no policy in place. So how can you deny the experiences of these women, but also how can you deny the experiences of the correctional staff? That's how I knew there was a legislative gap. So it was my conclusion that both the women and the staff were telling the truth. And the missing piece was having a policy in place to govern how these facilities administer, store, and dispose of menstrual products. And so there are states that mandate some kind of policy, but again, we wanted to make sure that there was a policy in all facilities, and it had to be a written policy. And then I found out throughout my research as well that the issue was not so much an issue of supply of the product, but an issue of those products being denied and withheld from women. So this means that a woman would go to a guard, ask for some products, and those products would either be flat out denied. So that's what I mean when I say denial, like they would just say no. or the products would be withheld, meaning that they would be withheld for a particular amount of time. So a woman would ask a guard, can I have a certain amount of products? And they would only give them maybe half or a fraction of what they needed, or would make them wait for a certain period of time. So that's what I mean when I say the denial and withholding, flat out denying or making them wait or not providing them with enough products. And oftentimes it was due to some type of discriminatory practice. So there would be some guards that would be compliant, and then other guards who may not have gotten along with a particular woman, or may not have liked a particular woman, or there may have been a woman that was held in a different cell for disciplinary reasons. And so there were all of these discriminatory reasons for why these products were being denied and withheld. And that was the core issue. A lot of these facilities, most of them, in fact, have these products on site. They're available. The women in these facilities know that they're available. A lot of times you can see them, but they were being denied and withheld for reasons that were left up to the discretion of the staff. So we wanted to make sure in Ohio that we made that explicitly illegal. So the policy that is now mandated by law has to have the anti-discriminatory clause in there. And it says that you cannot withhold products on the basis of race, sex, degree of charge, or any other type of discriminatory identity. So we are the only law in the United States right now that addresses that core problem and explicitly makes that illegal. And I mean, it's been absolutely amazing that people are starting to understand that women need more than just access to products. We need to address the issue of why the access is being withheld in the first place. And the issue in Ohio was the issue of discrimination, and there's too much discretion. And then also the bill requires that all menstruating women have at least one shower a day, because we know that access isn't enough. We know that menstrual dignity isn't just about having products, but about hygiene practices in general. And we know that there are psychological, emotional, health, so many different reasons, economic reasons for why incarcerated women should be practicing the best hygiene, especially knowing that a lot of them will re-enter back into society one day, and we don't want germs and diseases and things like that spreading because women are not practicing cleanliness. And so we knew that assuring that these women could shower and clean themselves, clean their clothes, was really going to be a key part of this as well. And then an underestimated part of this work that I haven't really seen any bill so far, any law address, is the issue of disposing of these products. So in Ohio, there were no disposal bins in any of the cells that were accessible to women. So women told a lot of stories about how they would either have to flush products, how they would have to essentially relieve themselves in the shower. And there were products that would be on the floor, on the shower floor, or women would have to take them with their bare hands and carry them to another part of the facility because they didn't want to keep them in their cell where there would be odors and other things like that. And so we also wanted to be sure that another element of practicing good hygiene was addressed in this bill, and mandating that all facilities have a disposal bin with a lid accessible to the women. And then another part of the bill mandates that the policy has to include procedures for hand washing, especially if women are handling bodily fluids, right? A lot of these women will have accidents in their beds, accidents on the floors, accidents in communal areas, and they will be forced to clean up these accidents. And so we want to be sure that we're doing what we can to implement good hygiene practices along with access to menstrual products to just kind of be more comprehensive. And honestly, this language was written almost 5 years ago. It passed in 2025, but it was originally written in 2021. So there's still more work to be done and more issues to be addressed, as prisons were originally designed for the male body. And so there's so many ways that these facilities are not handling this issue in the most effective and hygienic way.
This is all so amazing.
Oh,
I'm taking it all in, and I'm just so excited. No, I appreciate the very, very thorough breakdown of, and let me check myself too. It's no longer a House bill, so make sure we're saying it correctly. Is it now just Law 29? Like, what is the legal acronym for the law?
That's actually a good question. We've been calling it House Bill 29 for so long that's what we name it. That's what we name it. I guess I should look and see what the law is called, the code for the law.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have like a formal name. We call it the Menstrual Equity Act, but it has an official code. And so I can get that to you. I don't have it memorized. We just call it House Bill 29.
Yeah, when you get a chance, shoot it over to me, because I want to make sure I put it in the description of this episode so people can have access to it. And for you to not have been in legislature before, that was so beautifully said. And it was easy for what I call civilians, so to speak, or anybody that can pick up anything and read. You were able to break that down so easily. So I appreciate that, and I thank you for that. Now, this next question, you kind of answered it already, but I want to see if you want to add on to it. So before this law, decisions were often led to the discretion of correction officers, which you have said before, and like the staff of the facility. So how does the HB 29 specifically strip away that power to use period products as a form of punishment or even like coercion? Because last season, I did a whole episode about for some reason, the name's just not coming to the top of my head. It was a correctional officer that I did an episode on last season that he finally got caught. But in order to give the period products to the incarcerated women, he was raping them or making them give him some type of oral pleasure or something that was just sexual harassment in general. And by the time he got caught, it was several women. I mean, we're past like 10. And it just made me think about that. So how would the House bill help with that if the correctional officers or the staff was using the period products or their power of the use of period products as a form of punishment or coercion into something that's unethical that they should not be doing in their leadership position?
Yeah, I mean, what it does is it formally makes it illegal to do so. And I feel like that's been the issue, is that we have to create laws that force people to treat people with respect and dignity. If there isn't legislation that explicitly prohibits certain behaviors, you would be surprised at what people would do. I mean, I believe that it gives women leverage now to actually address this issue from a legal perspective. The women who've worked on this bill and we've already come up with some future plans for assuring that this law is properly being followed. There's no accountability clause in the language because it is implied that if you break the law, that there will be consequences for that. But we also understand prison culture, and we understand that people don't get to see what's happening behind closed doors, and that corrections officers are very well protected by the state. And so we actually need to do more research to see what other gaps there are, even in the language that we've provided, because people will always find a creative way or some kind of loophole to get around doing the right thing. And so this law makes it illegal to coerce these women or withhold or deny products as any kind of form of punishment or anything like that. Now, I'm not naive, and there will be women who don't know that this law exists, and there will be forms of intimidation used against them to scare them. And we just have to continue the fight. And that's what we see throughout the country, right? Just because there are laws in place, it doesn't stop people from breaking the law. But what we can do is continue to bring more awareness to what's happening, bring more awareness to the realities of what women specifically and uniquely go through behind bars. And I mean, we have plans to take this language to a national level, because right now women who are in federal prisons don't have these same levels of protection. And so while there is a federal law that applies to federal prisons, it doesn't prohibit these discriminatory practices. And so what you will find is that although the law says you have to give them for free, there isn't any language that says, but you can't do this and this and this. And so this is going to be an ongoing battle. Our goal is to make as many women who are on the inside aware of this issue, so that if it does come down to having to take legal action, that they have this law to leverage.
So thank you for going into more detail about that. Now, my next question I'm going to ask before we cut to our next commercial break. You actually answered this, so I'm going to tweak it a bit. I'm going to read the original question, then I'll give you the tweaked version. So beyond just providing pads and tampons, this bill mandates hot showers and proper disposal bins. Why were these specific sanitary requirements so critical to include in the final language of the bill? So you gave the response in one of the previous questions explaining about the sanitation, teaching proper sanitation acts. So when they do go back out into what we consider the real world, so to speak, that they have the knowledge that they need. And we were talking about them having to grab their pads or their products with their hands, or how they're left in the shower. They don't want to leave them in their cells. So I appreciate you for answering that. So my question to you is the tweak version. With this bill, is there a level of education to help combat like period poverty, or to increase the menstrual equity of these women that will help them like retain that knowledge so they can take on with them when they move forward with their lives?
Yeah, so I don't think that there's any language per se in the bill requiring any kind of education.
Okay.
But I believe that the process of getting this bill passed has been very educational for both current and formerly incarcerated women, and myself, to be honest, because like I said, I had no experience in this area at all. But through this process, we have all learned just how challenging it is to get anything accomplished at the State House. But we've also learned how laws and legislation can make a key difference in the ability to make noise about a particular issue. So we were doing all types of media articles. We were doing workshops on the issue. And we believe that that was educating people, but it wasn't creating the change. And so we knew that implementing a law was going to be necessary to make transformative change, but also continuing to educate people on how they can do this themselves, because I'm just one person. But what I would love to see is other people taking this example and creating their own laws and addressing other issues around menstrual equity, kind of using this model that we've created here in Ohio. So I feel like, I hope I'm answering your question correctly, but I feel like the entire process has been very educational, from what I've learned about myself to what I've learned about grassroots organizing to what I've learned about the experiences of the incarcerated to what I've learned about how things work at the state house to how a bill becomes a law to now what happens after a law is passed and the next level to assure accountability. And I mean, the education just continues. And I think if I could give any advice about that, it would just be to bring as many people on the journey along with you, because we're all learning. Everybody has something to offer to this. And we've had so many supporters along the way that have filled in gaps in all these different areas for us. And so I believe that both current incarcerated women have had opportunities to learn and grow from this. And anyone who cares about this issue and has been involved in this effort has learned as well.
I love that. Thank you so much. And yes, you answered the question perfectly. Because once you start saying, you know, webinars and workshops and hey, just like you said, even just the verbal conversation that you're having with one another and learning about each other and learning how we're so similar yet so different, but we all want to come together for a different cause. So I love it.
But you wouldn't believe too, like how these women were just tolerating a lot of this because they weren't educated on their rights, or they weren't educated on the fact that they could do something about this and that they've always had the power to do something about this. I tell them all the time, I've never been incarcerated. You all have experienced this firsthand. It should be you on the front lines writing bills and advocating for your fellow women. So that was also a big educational piece for them as well.
Yeah, and that's great. Like you said, just not knowing your rights, you're not understanding the things that you are owed. So again, that's a form of education, educating, serving, and ultimately healing these menstruators. So I absolutely love it. We're going to actually cut to a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with you.
Periods got you down? Kick cramps to the curb with Pilates for Periods. Our online program combines targeted Pilates, soothing yoga, calming meditation, and breathwork to help you manage your menstrual cycle naturally. Feel stronger, calmer, and more in control. Reclaim your comfort. Visit Pilates for Periods YouTube page linked in the description of this episode and start your journey to a more manageable cycle today. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back from that commercial break. We hope that you guys enjoyed it. So let's get back into this amazing interview that we're having with Kayelin. So you've spoken about the dehumanization that occurs when a body's natural function is ignored by the state. How do you see the stigma surrounding periods being weaponized within the physical structure of a prison?
Yeah, so that's something that's uniquely happening to women, unfortunately. I feel that there's a stigma that exists amongst women and men. And then having a compounded identity of being incarcerated just kind of makes that worse. So, I mean, the stigma around periods in general is that they're gross. You feel gross when you're on your period. You're dirty. Something's wrong with you, especially if you have reproductive health issues that make your period a bit abnormal. There's a lot of shame around having something wrong reproductively. So there's that. And then to be literally guarded in every way by oftentimes male guards and male COs that have no knowledge of what you're going through. And then to have those issues compounded by being incarcerated is just, it's something that I honestly can't fathom. I usually have the women, when we're testifying, have them explain just what they were going through mentally, physically, emotionally, while having to experience that. There's the agony of knowing that this is something that's coming every month and you're not going to have access to what you need. So there's like the, anticipatory agony of it, right? Where like a couple of days beforehand, you're like, oh God, what am I going to do? I know this is coming. So this is going to add unnecessary stress to what you're already going through. And then knowing that you're going to have to go ask for products and have those products denied. I just think that's an experience that I can't really even speak to. So the stigma of both having a period, being a menstruator, on top of being an incarcerated woman, is just something that's another level that we have to address, because a lot of people will feel that these women deserve to be treated this way because they're incarcerated. I've had to combat a lot of comments where people will have this ideology and spit all this hatred and say things like, well, if you don't want to be denied your product, you shouldn't go to jail, and all of these kind of other things. And the stigma prevents you from remembering that this is happening to 50% of the population, irregardless of if they're incarcerated or not. And the stigma will also have you forget that this is something that you can't control. And all of the physiological changes that happen around this time in a woman's life every single month. So there's so much with combating the stigma by itself, but I think that a bigger concern is that we see incarcerated women and we feel as if they deserve to be treated in such a way, to have their dignity stripped of them. There's a common misconception that people are sent to prison to be punished, and that is not true. The status of being incarcerated is the punishment. The fact that you are removed from society and now you have to spend time here, that is the only punishment. Anything else is inhumane. Anything else is cruel, and so I believe that the stigma of incarceration surpasses the stigma of menstruation. And in this case, they compound to make the experience just horrendous for these women.
Absolutely. You struck a chord. During season 2, I interviewed a doctoral student from Tulane whose primary research was periods in prisons, and how incarcerated women are dealing with it. And one of the biggest things that she said she had to combat was people feeling like, well, they're in prison, so who cares? And it's like, okay, one, they're still human. 2, you're not God. I mean, we can have goddess-like and God-like energy, but you're not God, so you can't make that decision. But also, what about all the people that are incarcerated wrongfully, that's in there because of a wrongful conviction? You don't think about those cases. Or, maybe a mom that was a single mom trying to fend for her kids and just happened to get caught with a crime and now in prison for 10 years for something that she probably could have just got community service for. You don't think about those situations when you're just so ready to judge because of these individuals being incarcerated. They're still human beings. They're still human beings. They deserve dignity through their menstruation like any other person who menstruates on this in this world, so to speak.
And to be honest, I mean, that is a commitment that I had to make to myself. I had to, when I took on this work, I had to really understand that I was fighting for all incarcerated women, irregardless of what they have done, irregardless of what they have been charged for. And it is a way of walking through the world now. It is a level of mercy and a level of compassion that I have developed for this population, to be able to say to myself and to the world that I know this person may have committed this crime or have done this horrendous thing, but they are still human at the end of the day. They're still human beings. And so once I truly developed that mindset, I don't even ask what you were incarcerated for. Some of the women that I've worked with for the past 5 years, I have no idea why they're in jail, because it doesn't matter to me. They've served their time. They're back out in society trying to be a better person, just like the rest of us. And so I feel as though we have to be careful with how we feel we're punishing people and what message that sends, because it could be any of us. It could be any of us. I mean, we see what is happening in the world today and what's happening in this country and what's happening under this current administration. The things that we choose to criminalize could lend us behind bars, whether we are guilty or not. And these women will tell you that they're not innocent. They're never going to deny the things that they did. They've taken full accountability. They've taken full responsibility. But the problem is you have to see them as human. You have to see them beyond their mistakes, just as if we would have an expectation for people to see us beyond our mistakes. And so it truly is a lens that you have to gain when doing this work, because there will be a woman that will sit in front of you and say, I have done XYZ and I am here, but I have also done XYZ to become a better person. And I believe that all women should have access to menstrual products while we're in here, because we're all in here to try to be better people and to try to serve our time so we can get back to our families. There will be some women who, unfortunately, who won't, but that doesn't mean that they can't serve and make the world a better place while they're there amongst the people that they're with. And so I believe there's a level of mercy that we have to give if we ever do want to get rid of stigma, if we ever do want to eliminate discrimination in this area, if we ever do want to address menstrual equity. We can't say we want menstrual equity for this group of people and not this group. If we say we want it for women, all women, we can't say we want menstrual equity for just these type of women that we like, that fit into our box, that we can understand. Or are we going to truly strive for menstrual equity for all women that don't look like us, talk like us, come from our country, come from our background, or women that we just don't understand? I don't understand why some of them are behind bars, but that's not my job. My job isn't to understand them. My job is to convene them together to fight for a common cause. And anyone who wants to get behind that clause is okay with me.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, there is a huge financial gap in prisons. Often a monthly wage of $15 is pitted against a $7 box of tampons. How does the House Bill 29 address the commissary versus necessity battle for those who can't afford basic care?
Yeah, so there still is a gap because the state produced products are very low quality. And the ones sold on commissary are often the industry standard quality of products. And so there are some women that will require higher quality products just because of the nature of their menstrual cycle. But unfortunately, to get that, they're going to have to pay twice as much money as they would have to pay if they were on the outside in some cases. I mean, most women, if they're able to work in prison, will make about $20 a month. $20 a month. And if there's a $7 to $10 pack of tampons, now she's having to choose between, okay, I'll take the free products that are offered to me, but you know, I might go through them quicker, or they might cause worse issues because they're not good quality, or I'm going to have to take the only money that I have and choose between buying other things that I need, talking to my families, paying fees, and all these other things. And so what I feel like the law does is that it provides a basic standard of access. So the quality is not great, but you will at least be able to get what you need in the quantity that you need for free. So if the quality isn't great and you need more to supplement for that, at least the law allows for that to happen. We can't get everything that we want on the first shot, but we definitely plan to address the quality. And I think with more awareness and education on this issue, especially in carceral settings where health issues just seem to be worsened by the environment. There isn't a lot of formal research on that yet because it's women and people don't want to research incarcerated women. But awareness is growing, research in this area is growing, and I think that we will soon have enough research to substantiate the fact that we cannot provide cheap, broken down products in the future. So I am hopeful that that will be something we can address later on.
Absolutely. Well, you've done the foundational work. We can add on as time goes on.
Yes.
So it's
We
perfect.
just had to get something on the books for now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now that Ohio has set this precedent, what are the next steps for the Ohio Coalition for Menstrual Equity?
Yeah, so I created that. It's a catch-all for menstrual equity advocates because we didn't have a centralized place so that we could, share and network all of our menstrual equity resources. So I envision the Ohio Coalition for Menstrual Equity to be a place where people can just get all of the resources they need to address whatever period poverty issue they have in their community, but to also make Ohio the model for menstrual equity policy and advocacy. So I'm still working on getting the website up and formalizing all of the documents needed to make that an official organization. But yeah, I envision that to be a place to where someone could go find the resources that they need, find a charity providing menstrual products, find advocates who are working on this issue, and be able to network and bring it all to one kind of repository.
Right. So a side question to this, the one I just asked, are there any taboo health gaps in correctional facilities that you are looking to address next?
I think indirectly, I would like to address product ingredient transparency. So
Yes.
for me, certain menstrual product brands are really irritating. And I have no idea what they're putting in these cheap brands that they provide to incarcerated women. And so within my small sphere of influence, I would love to work with a legislator here to make sure that any products provided to Ohio at least have the ingredients labeled on them so that if a woman is experiencing some type of irritation or allergy, she can have the ingredients there to pull from. And, some women might be allergic to cotton, right? There's a lot of cotton products out there. Right. And if that's all that's offered to her, what is she going to do? Does she even know that this, you know what I mean? Like, does she even know what she's putting in her body? Do any of us know what we're putting in our bodies? Absolutely. We don't. At least here in Ohio, there are some brands that don't, because they're classified as medical devices and not cosmetics. So the manufacturers don't have to label the ingredients.
Right.
Right? It's always something. It's always something to fix. Always something to fix. Absolutely. So I would love to see more transparency just so we can start maybe addressing some of those nuances in women's health related to the ingredients that are put into menstrual products.
Absolutely. And that could be helpful again, like we said, once they are released and they are back operating in what, again, they call the free world, so to speak. Then if they had, unfortunately, we don't want this to happen, or heaven forbid, but if something was to happen where they have a uterine health issue or a reproductive health issue, a fibroid, endometriosis, something, they can at least say, hey, well, at this time, between these many years, I was using this specific brand and it had X, Y, and Z in it,
exactly.
which we can, so we can see, PFA or, some type of endocrine disruptor or whatnot.
Exactly.
So that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, my next question, we touched on it briefly before we went to our last commercial break, but we often talked about reentry for incarcerated individuals. How does receiving dignity and basic health care while inside impact a woman's ability to successfully transition back into society as a productive and healthy citizen.
So from the stories that I've been told, when you're denied products on the inside, I mean, it affects you in every single kind of way, and it affects you uniquely as a woman. And depending on how you've had to access those products, it might affect your identity and how you see yourself. There were women who were very brave and came forward and talked about not having enough products and having to steal them or fight for them or do something they wouldn't normally do to gain access. And so if you're in survival mode while you're inside, those behaviors don't just disappear once you're released. And so from that perspective, we want to be sure that women are not having to come out of character or do things that they wouldn't normally do for access to something that should be theirs. Women have also talked about going into prison relatively healthy and coming out with major reproductive health issues. I mean, one of my more famous stories is that we had a woman that I've been working with, and she went in with a normal period and came out with stage 3 uterine cancer. And she was 6 months out from being released and was just having a period constantly, bleeding constantly, and nobody would do anything about it. And they were saying that, oh, it's stress or it's this or it's that. They try to treat your period with birth control as soon as you get in there. A lot of times they just try to, it's called menstrual suppression, where they just try to prevent you from having a period altogether. But these things affect you. So while she was in prison for the last 6 months, you know, she's experiencing these serious health issues. And then when she was released, she was hospitalized multiple times, had multiple surgeries, and, you know, it was concluded that her experiences inside had led to the cancer being more severe than it would have been had she been treated properly. And so the psychological and emotional effects of that, you start to blame yourself for even being there in the first place. All of these issues just compounded their experiences. And so, I mean, I heard so many different stories about just going into prison, not having a clue about what it's like, what you're going to have to do, and developing mindsets and behaviors and thought processes that didn't exist before, that you had to adopt to survive, and then coming out and having to try to retrain your brain so that you weren't reliving those experiences or acting with those behaviors out in society so you could avoid getting in trouble when you come out.
So unfortunate. I hate that it's almost like animals.
I know. It's
so
very animalistic.
Very animalistic. Now, for those of us who are listening, you have been a trailblazer. You mentioned that legislature wasn't your jam. You took a gander at it. So for those of us who are listening who want to be upstanders in their own communities, but feel like they don't have the right background or title, what is your best advice for turning a thought into a legislative action?
Honestly, I still don't know how he did. But you first have to start. It's going to be so cliche and it's very pageanty. But you have to start with believing in yourself and believing your cause. Because once I did that, I mean, I tried to get away from it, Brittany. I did. I was like pushing it off to other legislators. No one was listening to me. I was doing, like I said, workshops on this, just hoping someone else would take this issue on. And they didn't. They would just be like, ooh, that sucks, and then go about their life. And I'm like, but wait, aren't you going to do something? You just heard this whole spiel, but everyone was empowered, but no one was galvanized to do anything. No one takes it to the next level to take action. So my advice would be to do something. Do something about it, and believe that you can do more than what you think you can believe. I feel like God planted the seed in me, and then it was up to me to find the resources, keep putting the word out there about this issue. I mean, it took from 2021 to 2022 before anybody did anything about this issue legislatively. I had written the law. I was like, F it, I'll write the law myself. If y'all aren't going to write it, I wrote it. I wrote the language. All you have to do is shepherd it through the state house. You don't even have to think about it. Here it is. So, I mean, know that you can write your own laws. You can write the language. It has to be written according to Ohio code. But since there was nothing in Ohio code to address this, they took our direct language and put it into Ohio code. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
You have to do something. It's not enough to just be inspired. It's not enough to just be empowered. It's not enough to just care about the issue, but to take on the responsibility to be the one to lead it and not give up just because people are denying what you're saying, or they're not believing you, or you're not getting enough traction. If you truly believe that something is a problem, then naturally you're going to get resistance. It is a problem for a reason. It's a problem because people don't care. People aren't thinking about it. You know, this is one of the most challenging populations to advocate for, because everyone believes that incarcerated women deserve what they get. Incarcerated people in general deserve what's coming to them. So trying to convince people, convince lawmakers at that irregardless of what these individuals have done or what we say they've done or what we say they are, they still deserve this foundational dignity, was one of the most challenging things. But we did it because we believed it was the right thing. If you look at anything that's been accomplished in history, it was comprised of people who never gave up, who believed in what they were fighting for and took on the responsibility. They didn't hand it off to someone else. They took on the responsibility and all that came with it. And I truly believe that's only how you get things done. It's not going to be quick. I was like, oh, you know, this makes sense. Let's do this thing and it should be over quickly. No, it took 4.5 years and the bill had to be introduced 3 times. But we did it because we didn't give up. And I wanted to at certain points. I was like, maybe I'm just overzealous here. Maybe I'm too excited. Maybe I'm seeing something that other people aren't seeing. But then again, God had planted that seed in me and was like, nope, just keep going. If things aren't moving, write another letter to the mayor. If things aren't moving, do another press conference, host another workshop, you know, just continue to bring awareness while you're waiting for your next move to take off.
Right.
But there's always something you can do.
Absolutely. You said it best. First of all, when you said don't give up, it made me think about Yolanda Adams. Cue Yolanda Adams, don't give up. Because clearly, like you said, God plants the seed, but it's up to us to water it. You can have all these amazing ideas, but if you're not putting action into it, if you're just giving up and thinking it's going to come to you easily, that's just not the way that the world works, especially when it's something of this caliber. So that was, listeners, you heard that. She gave that advice. She gave the good advice. So we're going to cut to our last commercial break, guys, and we'll be right back with you.
Fly. Do you want? Yeah. Fly. Wanna fly. Do you want to fly? Wanna fly. Let go of all the things that hold you down. Used to be so easy.
Now, back to the show. Welcome back from that commercial break. We hope that you enjoyed it. Now, let's go ahead and cut into some news. So, Kayelin, first of all, you do have to let the listeners know how we can get in contact with you, how they can get involved. Do you have a website? Do you have social media? How can people get in contact with you and be a part of this cause?
Yeah. The best way is probably to send me an email. I'm an old lady, so I still have a Hotmail account. So it's Tiggs, like my last name, Tiggs, period, the number 4 at hotmail.com. So Tiggs.4 at hotmail.com. I would definitely love to connect with any other people who are advocating in this space because it seems so rare. And then I am on social media. I do post a lot of the bill progress on there. So that is KAYE_TIGGS on Instagram.
Awesome sauce. And I'm going to include that information in the description of this episode, guys, so it will be easy for you just to link over. And do you have any upcoming news or resources that you would like to share before we move forward?
I would like people to be on the lookout for the First Step Act, which is the federal law addressing menstrual products in prisons. I want people to be on the lookout for that because we are looking to amend that law to include the language that we have in House Bill 29 so that women in federal prisons are protected from discrimination and the denying withholding of products as well.
Awesome. And I'm going to link that information in the description of this episode, guys. So on our side, resource center, guys, on our website, kickcrampsas.org, we have our free resource center that has recipes, research, access to our fitness club, our Pilates for periods, our breath work, our meditation, everything that we're working on currently. So we will link that information in the description of this episode as well. We are still accepting listeners' mail, so feel free to comment to this episode with your questions or concerns. Or if you have a more intimate or private matter, feel free to email us at contact@kickcrampsas.org, and I will put that information in the description as well. But to recap, guys, we often talk about optimal wellness on this show as if it's a personal choice, like we make in the grocery store aisle or on our yoga mats. But as Kayelin just showed us, for thousands of women in the correctional system, wellness isn't a choice. It's a battle for basic human dignity. So to recap, Kayelin's own journey of turning a pageant platform into a legislative powerhouse to the actual mechanics of Ohio Bill 29. If there's one thing I want to carry into your week, or one thing that I want you to carry into your week, it's the definition of an upstander. Kayelin reminded us that an upstander isn't someone with a special title or a perfect background. It's someone who refuses to look away. Now, the Ohio House Bill 29 isn't just a win for one state, it's a blueprint for our country. And even globally, it proves that when we strip away the stigma and look at the law, we can actually force the system to see our humanity. As we close out today's episode, I want to leave you with a thought from Kayelin that really stuck with me. She said, no matter how difficult the situation, these women continue to allow their voices to be heard. So what are you doing with your voice this week? And how are you showing up for menstruators in your community who are still fighting for equity? Now remember, wellness is a right, dignity is a mandate, and together we are officially kicking the system's ass. Now we want to thank all of you for tuning in today to our podcast. If you're listening to the audio, head over to our YouTube channel where you can see the actual video, or Spotify, or even iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or whichever platform you prefer to listen to. However, until next week's episode, we manifest a positive, productive, and peaceful remainder of your day and your menstrual journey ahead. And we'll be speaking to you on next Menstruation Monday. Peace.